Security camera watchers, what is your yikes? He probably wanted nobody else to see that moment you've seen over the monitor. Before we start, be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about new videos. Comment your answer below. I saw a clearly mentally disabled man jerk off behind some tables. Didn't actually see anything, but the hand motions were pretty obvious. He stopped and walked over to his mom when he saw her nearby. Lady didn't notice a thing. Opened a bank branch's CCV one night that had an issue with homeless people bleep and doing drugs in their vestibule. Bam, a bunch of homeless people were having an orgy. Most bleep up thing? Extra tidbit: homeless guy was having a snooze and a guy ran in with a giant kitchen knife and plunged it into his head. No relation. Just mental health issues and was running from the cops. I've seen girls send nudes in stock rooms, people bleep in corners, one guy bleep himself and ran out the store leaving his bleep pile and a trail, and a guy bleep in lingerie. Saw a few things in my time as a security surveillance operator for a casino resort. Mostly just sex in the pool after dark and topless sunbathers. Also the time a guard was stabbed 7 times by a dude on ice. A really abrasive executive totally getting sprayed by a skunk. Cops woke us up pounding on the door at 4 a.m. Neighbor thought a guy was trying to break into our garage. We checked the tapes. Drunk guy was leaning on our trash cans bleep. This wasn't his first offense. Watched as a guy took a bleep in a public water fountain. The proceeded to call his friends over and show them. Sometimes I do weird things at the cameras, just so they can go home and tell that story. I was the one being watched, bleep multiple times in a psych ward bathroom. I was in psychosis at the time and completely forgot there were cameras in every room. I work summers at a building in NYC and regularly watch the cameras to keep an eye on contractor and just the building, and one time saw a resident who was pretty elderly and had a wife start aggressively making out with a younger woman in the elevator. He passed and his wife now has the apartment in a very nice neighborhood in Manhattan and not sure she ever found out. Worked security downtown at a high-rise. We had a covered loading dock that had a trash compactor and a few parking spaces. We had several cameras overlooking the area. The amount of people that I've seen stumble in drunk to piss or bleep behind the trash compactor is shockingly high. It wasn't ways homeless either. Lots of normal bar goers thought it was a good place to piss. There happened to be a little speaker on the dock door. If we couldn't get to them before they started, one guard had to be at the desk at all time, so the patrolman would need to be close. We would shout snarky things to embarrass them. The looks on their faces when you said that you had their bleep on camera was just wonderful. I once saw an older gentleman walking around talking to a few of my co-workers. He then got real still and stood in place for about a minute. Afterwards he shook his pant leg and made a beeline for the door. Turns out he was shaking turds out of his pants. One of my co-workers who had kids cleaned it up, no big deal. Bless her. Used to work as store staff at a PC World store, would check CCTV from that day for the last hour of my shift. The amount of people you see looking around and going into an empty aisle to itch their nutsacks and bleep is crazy. A buddy I got still lives with his ex who he thought has been stealing his stuff. He showed me a video of her kicking the bleep out of her toddler and picking her nose. When I was a closing manager at McDonald's, we would close at midnight. Around 1030 or 11 p.m. or so, I'd go to the office to get started on closing paperwork and watch the cameras/drive-through. One night while looking at the drive-through camera with a headset on, a car full of people pulled up to the speaker. The front passenger gets out not knowing he's facing the camera and whips it out and starts pissing. I called my crew in to see this bleep. 2 of us turned the headset mics on and said, "That's a nice dick boy." He freaked and jumped in the car and they sped around the building. We all hung out the window waving at them. Guess that's the only time we ever had a bleep in the drive-through. That was hilarious, lol. All I know is that a few days ago, I thoroughly checked the positioning of my boobs and everything before entering a building, for reasons. Sure enough, today I found out that there is a camera in front of said building. so if I find myself described in this thread now I'll go nuts. We had security cameras at a deli I worked at years ago. The boss had a tiny office in there with a big window in the office door. I walked past his office one day and, yep, he was in there bleep. He was watching my co-worker on one of the cameras and jerking it was pretty attractive. He had no idea I was coming in, he thought it was just the two of them there. I don't think he ever knew that I saw. Never mentioned anything to anyone. My dad told me about how a little kid groped a mannequin for 20 minutes. A group of local juggalos were kicking a hacky sack in an area of the park well known for narcotic sales. The leader of this little gang, and a minion, both took a wild kick at an errant sack, the leader taking the minion's kick square in the nuts. Leader guy dropped into the fetal position, tears flowing freely. Minions stood about howling in delight. Video gold. Was working the evening shift of the front desk once. Girl goes up the elevator wearing a coverall. Reaches between her legs, gets a good scratch in, pulls her hand out, inspects it closely, puts it in mouth. She noticed the camera at the very last second. Her jaw dropped. Lol. It wasn't bad, but I did watch a guy have an epic air guitar solo for like 10 minutes while hiding from my responsibilities at work once. Dude was pushing 70 and always acted like a bleep, but apparently is totally down to have a concert with his imaginary friends on the clock. Saw my shift manager slip and fall outside. He was fine. But we got a kick out of watching the tape on repeat. So, I'm not a security cam watcher, but I do have cameras outside my house surrounding my house because we live in a horrible city where lots of robberies and such take place. These cameras made from the company, Ring are motion censored, so when it senses motion, it lets out a chime, and starts recording. Well, one night we were all eating dinner, and our phones all dinged, the chime went off, and we all got a notif saying that there's motion at your back door. Well, I went to the back door because the camera wasn't done recording, and I saw a man, maybe in his 30s or 40s, pissing on the tree next to our house. I tapped on the glass panel on the door to get his attention, and when he looked, I pointed at the camera and smiled. God, the look on his face was priceless. I live on an acreage in the forest. My house cams caught a few coyotes take and kill a raccoon from the garbage can. Coyotes aren't cuddly puppies, people. Watched a dude trying to break up with his girlfriend for nearly an hour. It was great. I have a camera set up for my dog. I logged in yesterday because I knew he would be getting home from his daily walk. It was raining yesterday afternoon. What do I see just as I open up the camera? That little bleep jumps up on the couch and dries himself off by rubbing his body against all of the cushions. I used to work for a big hotel/pub chain, and at the staff party each year they do a compilation of all the stuff caught on security cameras over the year. Uncensored. Full-on sex in a stairwell, BJ in the lift, a guy leaning over the bar and barfing straight into the ice well. I stopped watching after that. As a kid, when at the grocery store and you start eating the grapes, then you look up and Terry's like 5 bleep cameras watching you eat the grapes, then you feel guilty about the 10 grapes you ate at the store when you were like 8. I'm reflecting on my life choices. On the other side, I once did the choreography to Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious while in an escape room, while they watched on the camera. The back corner of the convenience store I used to work at was a prime peeing spot, ESP, since it was next to a bar. I've watched at least 5 grown men piss into the bushes. Not the wildest story here, but def something I wish I could unsee. Me and my bro were doing an escape room, and as a joke we called the camera Karen. It responded with "I like Jen more, but that's okay," so we kept calling it Karen. At one point there was a little magnet maze my brother did, and he got angry at it and just yelled, "Goddamn mighty, I blame you, Karen." I was looking for more clue and I saw the camera just slowly point down to the floor and went, "Now look, she's gonna want free console now." We finished the room with about 15 minutes to spare, a 1-hour challenge, and the dude at the counter said it was the funniest thing he'd seen aside from a guy getting stuck on top of a wardrobe like bit in the room. Saw a male nurse pick his nose after doing rounds and inspect it. Guy's first day on the job, didn't know there were security cameras. Our office manager loves to watch the facility cameras in the field. We were at corporate and this bleep loved to watch the cameras and call people out, but this was a funny one. When I was like 14, I was on vacation with family. We were staying at a Red Roof Inn, and I wanted some alone time, so I went out to the staircase and sat in the corner and did my teenage boy thing. When I was done, I looked up, and there was a security camera pointed right at me. Someone out there watched a teenage boy diddle his fiddle and got paid to do it. Well, this one guy was stuffing iPhones in his backpack. He probably didn't want to be seen, because when I went to talk to him he started running away SMH. Saw a chicken walk up the side of a tree at 2 AM. Dude at the factory took an early lunch and walked behind a dumpster, and about 2 minutes later walked about 5 feet out from behind it and collapsed. Don't do heroin, kids. A guy in a lifted truck drove into our mall parking structure and the top of the truck hit the "No vehicles over X feet 20 inches" sign. He found out why we had that sign when he drove into a parking space and the truck's top hit a fire sprinkler. What a mess. I work at a bowling alley. Normally we don't have someone watching the monitors, but they are always recording. A few weeks before I started working, a dude managed to knock himself out using the punching game. He went to hit the punching bag and he missed, tripped, then hit his head and knocked himself out cold. He was fine, but everyone who works there has seen the footage. I'm working in that branch, and at like 2 AM I saw 2 guys in a corner sticking each other's hands in their butts. Lyle, a whole hand. Most disgusting CCTV moment in my 23 years of life. I watched a nice looking girl start dancing for a vid on her phone while I was at my friend's dad's convenience store. The moment she noticed the camera, she got very embarrassed. Probably the guys that lost their jobs because they were smoking crack/meth in their car whilst on break. They had a bad day. This is pretty unrelated, but I just want to say that there is a Plato's Closet in Virginia Beach that has a camera pointed directly into both of the dressing rooms. I complained months ago and it's still there. If you didn't know, Plato's Closet sells used clothing, and I would say the vast majority of the people that go there are 12 to 17-year-old girls. Hella late, but when I worked at Best Buy I found the bleep sales lead scratching and shifting his balls around while he was kind of hiding behind a wall. Totally zoomed in on him doing that and his face was priceless. Also, I caught someone getting blown in the bleep movie room. That was awkward. Just an employee, but our boss thought it was funny/stupid enough to show several of us. One of our cooks married, and has a kid, decides to grab one of the servers and firmly plant a kiss on her, right in front of one of the many, very obvious cameras. He got fired for sexual harassment, and then had to try to explain why he got fired to his wife. The server wasn't interested in him either. Creepy stuff. Don't normally watch it for work, but one time a full-timer was moving on to a new job, so the managers found a couple instances of him wiping out on his bike in spectacular ways as came into work for the goodbye party. Watching someone drive off with the gas nozzle still in their vehicle was bleep hilarious. I don't remember how long before they returned the hose and nozzle, but watching the hose split at its break point still makes me laugh. Not a watcher, but I was being watched. I was trying to learn how to do a front flip in my front yard. My dad was on a business trip, nobody else was home, and we lived on a quiet street. So I went to front yard, tried, and failed. This repeated 3 times till I gave up and decided to learn in a gym. My dad gets home and asks me, "What were you doing in the front yard? We have 2 security cameras. I see you start to run, then nothing, there was a dead zone, and then I see you lying on your back. What the heck were you doing?" Not really yikes, but there was sign in yard that said that you're not allowed to be here etc. in multiple languages. Every god bleep tourist that walks past gate to that yard goes in the yard to read that sign and then leaves in hurry, and I get to listen alarm sound every time. Should we move the sign? Nah, it's still bolted to wall after 3 years since I was there. I'm not a camera watcher, but my friend told me this story in the high school she worked at the time. She was watching when she saw a man sprinting down the hall, pretty sure looking for a bathroom. The guy whipped his pants down bleep on the floor and sprinted back to his class. She was fired for deleting it out of the tape. People are just stupid sometimes. I walked into an automatic sliding garage door in my parking lot at work yesterday. My first thought was that someone upstairs was probably having a chuckle. You have been visited by Sad Cat. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to make Sad Cat happy again.